Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Michelle. Thanks for tuning in to the Industry Edge podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by KNC Marketing. KNC is a full service marketing agency that helps companies grow their brand and increase sales. To learn more about KNC, visit kncmarketingagency.com. On today's episode, I'm joined by Angela Rakis, who has over 25 years of sales and sales leadership experience working in public, private, and PE-backed organizations globally. Angela now owns her own sales consulting firm, Metis Sales Solutions, to serve and grow organizations. Angela partners with CEOs to create their sales strategies and then works to implement those strategies to achieve their revenue goals. Angela, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, you've had a fantastic career in sales leadership. What led you to the pivot of starting your own firm?
Yeah, I was in sales for 2 decades with large Fortune 500 companies, IBM, ACS, Xerox. Loved it. Best sales training and upbringing I could ask for. And then I went on to work for two smaller companies that were PE-backed, private companies looking to do a rapid growth phase. And I just really loved that work and the difference I made in people's lives and the company and the change I could affect. And it was super fun. And so after the second one, when they sold to a global company and I found myself back selling for a global company, I said, no, thank you. And took the opportunity to go out on my own and start a consultancy that just focuses on small, mid-sized companies trying to figure out how to grow revenue.
What are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in how sales organizations are structured and operate today versus when you first started or 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah, the basics are the same. The biggest change I've seen over the years is really how technology has affected how we do our business. So we're still doing the five basic steps of identifying opportunities and building rapport to qualifying and uncovering the needs. You do your proposal, you overcome objections and negotiate, and you close the deal. That's the same, doesn't change. The change has been how technology has affected each one of those steps and stages. So in the beginning, you used to be able to educate your client on solutions and the value and, all of that. And then data and information and the internet and all those things came along, and our ability as salespeople to really guide end to end on that sales education and purchase. Then we all went to self-service and you could buy things on your own without a salesperson. And that was a big struggle for a lot of us. And now we're dealing with AI where it's now going towards self-solutioning, where our clients are actually putting solutions together. They're even more educated and coming up with answers on their own. So our ability and our requirements have changed again. And it's really nice in my perspective because we get to go back to people are buying from us because of the relationship and the value that we add to them. And so I think if we look at all of this technology as tools and teammates and opportunities to get better at what we do, it's a really fun time right now. But it keeps changing pretty fast.
That's like marketing too.
Yeah.
Um, can you share some of those pivotal experiences that have changed how you develop sales strategy today with technology and taking into consideration all the things that have evolved?
Yeah, it's interesting. Even when I started 6 years ago, technology wasn't a big conversation in the strategy. It was more in the methodology or just making sure someone had a CRM solution. If they had a sales cycle that required more data, we might look at a data source or high velocity selling as, workflows and those types of things. But they were all independent tools that you may or may not need.
Hmm.
Now, as we do strategy, rev tech is part of the conversation because it makes such a difference in how we sell and how rapidly we can attain information, how we can research and do a better job in our communications that I'd be remiss if I didn't include technology in the strategy portion of the project now.
Mhm. Are you finding that most of your clients are behind in their technology, or are they dipping their toe in the water? Like, where is your typical um, client when you are starting to engage with them?
They know it's coming and they have to do it. And even clients that are like, yes, AI, let's do all the things. When it comes down to, okay, you're ready to implement something, you can see the brakes start to come and they start to sit back in their seat a little bit. Um, so I think that most clients know it's coming. They know they need to do something, but we're kind of baby stepping it right now. Some clients are all in, right? They're like, let's go and do all the things. And we're finding that it's not smooth sailing, right? It's time to do something, but you're going to have to trial and error. It's
Mhm.
not always going to work. And then you've got to figure out how to implement that into the sales team,
Mhm.
right? And how does the team use the tools? And are we just asking them to do more things instead of just leaving them alone and letting them go sell and be successful from that perspective? So, how do you implement effectively? Is just a huge concern with CEOs. And so, although they're excited about it, they're also a little hesitant.
Mhm.
And for good reason, right? I think that's a responsible thing to do and not just throw a bunch of time and money and distraction at the
Mhm.
team.
Mhm. So obviously, in your time in your consultancy, you've been focusing on serving as that VP of sales, and your business has evolved over the years. So how has your business evolved beyond that VP of sales role, today?
Yeah, after 6 years of doing this, I've established just a huge network of people and then teammates that work with me where clients are requesting things. Do you know a recruiter? Do you know how we can do this? We need lead gen, but we don't really have a budget to hire 3 people to do cold calls. And so I have now this network of people I can bring to the table, I've worked with, I trust. They're part of the organization now. And so as a company, it's not just if you need a VP of sales, call Angela.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you'll have to go somewhere else. We're really the full service agency at this point. And, what do you need from a revenue perspective, revenue growth perspective? And we'll figure it out and solution it. And it doesn't have to be everything. If you just need a point solution or a point project, happy to do that. So it's been really fun to just add to the services that I can provide. And now just marketing from that perspective on we're here to serve you with all your sales needs.
Mhm. Can you walk us through what it looks like when you start engaging with a company, and their expectations are, I just need my revenue to grow, and then perhaps it turns into, oh, I need recruiting and I need that lead gen service. What is it? Where do you start? And then how does it evolve from there?
Yeah. We always start with strategy. And that's, where I sit down with, my client, the CEO usually, and talk through, right, what's the strategy? What are the goals? We put that whole strategy document together. And then inevitably there's things that they need to do to implement that strategy. So they may have a team, but they don't have lead gen. So we got to go fill that. Or um, they may need new comp plans because in the strategy, we decided that we're going to turn and sell product focused instead of geography focused, right?
Mhm.
We want subject matter experts. We've learned that our product is a little more technical. And so we want subject matter experts who can go really deep with our clients. Our clients are smarter than ever. And so to keep up with that, we're changing. So we need to do sales training. We need to, do new comp plans. We may have to hire new people. And so all of those pieces, then I help put in place to allow the client to implement the strategy. And then after we get everything built, then it becomes okay, how are you going to manage it going forward?
Mhm.
And it may be me, it may be that there's an internal resource that they want to promote into a VP position, happy to mentor them, do a warm handoff, get them up and running, support them on a quarterly basis, whatever that looks like. But it's really strategy and then implementation and then run.
Mhm. What do you feel like for other sales leaders that are trying to successfully implement a new sales strategy throughout an organization? Like, what are those key things that you do that they can do to ensure that it's not just a firework and, oh, we're going to start this thing and it doesn't go anywhere? How do you make sure it's truly implemented across an organization?
The messaging is super important. So as we get that strategy together, one, we're pulling in and we're talking to the other department leaders,
Mhm.
making sure they understand how it's going to impact them. I'm sure you can appreciate this, right? Sales comes up with some grand scheme and plan, and we're gonna, sell a bunch of stuff. Oh, marketing, by the way, you now have to go create a bunch of content and change the messaging because now we're, doing it this way. And you're like, great, I didn't have time for that. And then, oh, operations, we're doubling the input. So you've got to scale and grow and hire people and train and open a new office. And, wow. Finance, you know what? We need to look at the numbers differently now. We need new reporting, right? So when sales grows like that, we affect the rest of the organization and getting the other leaders on board with us and excited about the change, understanding the role they play in the growth of the company, and then their communication down to their teams. But it's a everybody's getting in the boat and excited about it, and then the communication down so that it's really a team sport and it's not sales against the company.
Ideally, yes. So where do teams usually get stuck when implementing a sales strategy?
I think that what I see in these growth companies and when we're trying to make a pivot, the sales leadership is typically a gap. And so the CEO will get it and he'll be the main salesperson for a while and then he can't do that anymore. Um, so then nobody's really watching the salespeople. They're doing the best they can, but they don't have a lot of oversight. And so things just kind of get derailed and no one can clearly articulate exactly what we're doing anymore. And yeah, it slowly just fades out into, you lose that crisp messaging. Or we'll see, a new leader will get promoted and with no training. And
Mhm.
so the best salesperson gets promoted. Oh, we're going to do this new thing. You're now in charge of sales because you're our best salesperson. One, they may not have wanted to be the sales leader. But then how do you train them and enable them and help them be successful in that new role? Like we joke, every year you get your sales quota, and all the salespeople look at each other and say, how'd they come up with that number? Like, that's crazy. Where'd that number come from? And now all of a sudden you take a salesperson and you put them as the VP of sales and they got to create the number. Like, well, how do I come up with that number? That's crazy. I don't know how to do this. So you're just up leveling the same problem.
Mhm.
And so that training and support when you promote a new sales leader is super important.
Do you see that they are usually when it is that top salesperson that gets promoted, do they also need the leadership skills to manage people, or do you see that they sometimes have that because they're great communicators? What are the things you see when that person gets promoted?
It's probably like a 50-50 shot that they're going to like it and stay.
Mhm.
Um, because a lot of salespeople, we're out there doing our thing, lone wolf, we're selling, we're getting stuff done. We don't delegate. There's no one to delegate to. We're salespeople, right? And we're just going. And then to pull them up, and now all of a sudden, I'm not the lead salesperson. I need to let my salespeople sell, and I just coach them in the background. I mean, we were just talking about delegation as a real problem, right? It's a real struggle. Put that in a sales perspective. When you see a deal, I'm jumping in, I'm going to go close that deal. And you've got to learn not to. You've got to let your salespeople do it. Support them and be there and don't lose the deal, but don't take over as well. Um, and so it just starts, sometimes it gets frustrating. Coaching skills need to be learned, and patience and delegation. Um, yeah, because it's more than just management, right? So people look at, a sales leader and, watch the KPIs. Is everybody making the phone calls? Are they doing the things? Yep, they showed up every day. There's a lot of leadership and coaching and motivation. Salespeople struggle and it's hard, and you have a bad day, and you got to get that salesperson excited to get back in the game.
Mhm.
And that's hard sometimes when they're having a bad month or a bad week or lost a big deal. So the coaching role and motivator role is really, really big
Mhm.
in a sales leadership position.
I can see that.
Yeah.
What types of roles or functions does your agency support? Are we talking training? Are we talking pipeline development, systems? You mentioned technology and
Mhm.
hiring. What are all the functions, and how can they all work together to achieve a great result?
We basically can support all levels of the sales process. So if you think about the administrative layer, so sales ops, pipeline management, CRM dashboards and reporting, it's a huge piece of the puzzle that someone's just got to keep track of. And, not a lot of organizations have that. So we'll do that data management, pipeline management. We do training across the board. So sales team training, customer service rep training. Uh, I've taught CEOs how to sell. Right. So it's all up and down the board from a training perspective. And then mentoring and helping new leaders, and then all the way up to the CEO level, and being a CEO's thought partner,
Mhm.
and how do they strategically shift the company. And I may stay on in an advisory role or as an embedded leader in their team,
Mhm.
just so that I can watch what's going on and help advise them as they restructure teams and try and, 10x the company. Yeah, I'm there to help figure that out.
Mhm.
And so it's all the way down from data management to strategic advisor.
Mhm. So basically, it's not just sell, sell, sell. There are a lot more layers that it affects throughout the organization, it sounds like. And I think we all, folks that aren't in sales, we know what it's like when, the left arm isn't seeing what the right arm is doing, and there's a lot of dysfunction there. So the communication, the implementation of technology, and then everybody working together is so important. Do you have any experiences in the last couple of years that stand out to you as a win with an engagement with one of your clients?
Yeah, we've had lots of, fun stories along the way. I love what I do, but, probably my favorite, a client here in Nashville had no sales team at all. And he brought me in, and, we started from scratch. We defined the roles, we defined the comp plan, the quotas. And I was putting out numbers that he was like, "Are you sure about that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think we can do that." And he's like, "Okay." And so we hired, trained, built a pipeline, set up a CRM, like all the things, soup
Hmm.
to nuts. I was with them for over 2 years. It was 3 years, and then I got a message from him, and he's like, "Hey, thanks to you, we just hit the Inc. 5000 fastest growing
Oh,
company."
wow.
And I was like,
That's great.
"That's why you get up every day."
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I mean,
that's
it's
awesome.
just so fun. But he was a great partner with me, right?
Mhm.
He totally supported me. He got roadblocks out of the way for me. He supported the whole sales team. If we had a problem, he was in. He was like, "What can I do? How can I help? I'll go to the meeting. I'll be there with you." Or like whatever we needed.
Mhm.
Um, and he helped make it fun, like just a fun environment to work in. Um, so yeah, it just had all the elements, and it worked out.
That's awesome. How long
Yeah.
do you feel like it takes to feel that momentum? You mentioned their experience was a couple years. Like, what can a sales team or a CEO expect when they're just launching a sales program or a sales team? Like what does it take to really feel something is happening?
Yeah, for a brand new team, ground up, I say to my clients, plan on a year.
Mhm.
Hit that ROI and okay, we're now back into making money out of this. There's a lot of upfront costs. And I've actually lately started doing ROI analysis with clients when we're doing a project this big,
Mhm.
just so that they recognize it's going to take a while. And are you, you know, mentally and financially able to take a year of investment to grow this thing? And the answer is not always yes.
Mhm.
Like I've had clients look at the numbers and go, yeah, I don't want it there. I'm
Mhm.
like, good. I'm glad we did this and didn't get, 2 months into the project. And they're like, this isn't working. I'm done. And I quit. And they just shut everything down. Um, but, in general, it's going to be a year.
Mhm.
You're hiring people and you're training people and building a pipeline. It doesn't happen overnight. Um, we'll try and get some quick hits and I'll try and leverage my network and do anything I can. But the reality is it just takes time. And now with technology being such a big piece of the puzzle, it's even more expensive because
Mhm.
now you're buying tools to help everybody, right? It used to be you'd get the free version of HubSpot and we could go make it work. And now it's all the tools and things. So it gets a little more expensive.
I I totally agree. Same in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine when you're engaging, you engage with companies of all sizes. How do you have to tailor your approach for different industries and different growth stages of business, from startup to mid-market to scaling giant businesses? What's your approach to those different types of businesses?
it's it's the same methodology, right? The methodology works. Doesn't matter the size, the industry. That's great. It's just how do I implement it? And so if we start down at a startup new company, um, I'll actually do hour or 2 hour phone calls every other week and just take them through the strategy process, right? And so we'll talk about whatever they need to create. But okay, we're doing sales math, right? Here's the template I have, talk them through it, all the things, and then you guys go do your homework. And then they come back 2 weeks later, show me what they got. We do it like, and then the next month we go the next thing. And so it seems slow, but when you're in startup mode and you're doing everything yourself, it just takes time. And so I just try and go slow at their pace. And I've had clients, serial entrepreneurs say, shoot, I wish I would have started all my companies this way with this clarity and understanding of what we were doing and why we were doing what we're doing. Um, and then, we get to a little bit bigger company and it's let's put the strategy and the playbook together and we do a customized sales playbook and I can give that back to them. They can use it for training and hiring and process and SOPs and all the things, and they're still at a size where the CEO is going to manage the salespeople, or maybe I just check in with them once a month or once a quarter to make sure they're okay. And then, as we get to bigger and bigger clients, it's all the things we've talked about. It's the strategy, and then I help them implement, and then we do the run. Um, I've had really large clients where they had an SVP of sales who was in charge of multiple sales teams, and one of the teams was struggling. And so I came in and just partnered up with that team to get them back on track.
Mhm.
So even huge organizations, I'm still able to go in and it's actually kind of fun because it feels a little bit like home and going back to my IBM days and being part of something really big for a little while and then I get to go home.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So tell me, today's business leaders, sales leaders are very, very different from, I'm sure, when you first started in sales. So why is that traditional sales organization and model sometimes not enough for growing companies. Like, what are those things that you mentioned technology? Like, what do they need to be focused on to achieve success in today's sales environment?
It's being really clear on the strategy. You'd be surprised how many times I go in and interview all the salespeople individually, and it's like, well, what do you sell? And I get different answers from everybody.
Mhm.
Um, so having that clear strategy, this is who we are, this is what we're selling, this is what we're doing, um, and then having some guardrails around the teams because there are technologies that are really fun and then they get distracted or somebody thinks they've got a better idea. I'm like, well, I download this and then and off they go on, this way and another salesperson going that way. And um, so the the world where everyone's remote, just all of these things start to add up
Mhm.
that leadership and being able to coach and motivate and keep everybody on track with a clear strategy is so
Mhm.
important. And I'm to the point where we used to do sales kickoffs once a year. And now it's like, no, we need to do quarterly updates, quarterly get togethers.
Mhm.
And we would traditionally run numbers by the quarter, right? Or, you'd have your quarterly sales targets, but you wouldn't necessarily get together. Now we're either on a virtual call together or we're all flying in and getting together quarterly, just because it's too easy to get off track.
Mhm.
And it's also too easy to feel alone out here.
Mhm.
We do need to learn from each other. And so annual kickoffs, I'm kind of pushing now towards quarterly.
Mhm. It sounds like the technology and the way that work styles have changed have just sped everything up, and
It
but
has.
also like you're working so hard and fast, but then you're isolated. So working from home, it's such an interesting world we live in post-COVID. So I imagine the structure of the sales teams that you serve look much different. How would you say CEOs today are responding once they realize they don't necessarily have to hire a full-time CRO to get the leadership and execution in sales? And um, how do you make sense of that to CEOs who are a little nervous to switch up the traditional model of a sales team?
Yeah, the idea of having somebody one day a week or a half a day a week is a little daunting. I get a lot of CEOs that are just like, are you sure? Just one day a week? And in my mind, I'm thinking, you have two salespeople. If I can't handle two salespeople, right, I got it. You're okay. It's just a different philosophy. But I think that all this remote working and everyone being virtual, as well as there's a lot more fractional executives out there, and so it's a little more commonplace that it's not as big of a deal as it was 6 years ago. I mean, you think 6 years ago, nobody was fractional. No, not nobody was remote, but remote was rare. Um, Sales teams have always been geography based or spread around, but we were still showing up into an office or getting together semi regularly. Or you were meeting everybody because you were taking clients out to dinner or going to a conference and all the things. So you saw each other a lot more.
Mhm.
Um, but no, you fast forward 5, 6 years and it's a totally different world. And so the fractional isn't as scary as it used to be.
Mhm. What have I not asked you today that you feel would be important for our listeners to know?
Mm. We've covered so much of it. I think really getting close in with the CEO when we work, asking CEOs to let a consultant in, be part of the team, and not just provide a weekly update has really made a difference in the success. So, we haven't really talked about, that I embed myself into the team. I
Mhm.
am on the leadership team. I am on the weekly L10 or whatever you call your update, leadership meetings. I'm going to strategy planning, getting on a plane, flying and going there and participating live. So even if it's a fractional executive role, I would encourage CEOs and leaders to include them and think of them as their actual VP of sales or, fractional CFO, whatever the role is. They're part of the team. They're part of the leadership team. Let them understand the rest of the organization because, like we said earlier, sales affects the rest of the organization. So don't keep, these fractional roles isolated. Bring them into the team and really let it be successful. And that's where you'll see the real benefit.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Well, today we've been talking to Angela Rakis, founder of Metis Sales Solutions. Angela, tell us where our listeners can learn more about you.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. It's the easiest place to find me. It's just Angela Rakis. The one in Nashville. There's actually two Angela Rakis in the
Well,
country. So that's the easiest place to find me, or my website is out there too.
great. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michelle.
Recording.